your nerves take over before a big talk or presentation? You're certainly not alone. Even the best speakers in the world have been where you've been. And what if I was to tell you that the anxiety, those nerves that you're feeling, it can be transformed into excitement. And you can head out on stage feeling so much more grounded and confident in your abilities. Welcome back to another episode of our Advice from Initiative, where we share the pearls of wisdom from wonderful women working on the industry on many different topics. And today we're talking about public speaking. And I'm lucky enough to sit down with the amazing Stephanie Darvill, who is a professional events host and communications consultant. Stephanie has hosted some of the biggest events in Scandinavia, Women in Tech Sweden 2025, where she was absolutely amazing, 2024, Tech Barbecue, Gothenburg Tech Week 2023 and 2024. And this all started from a lightning talk that Stephanie did in 2023 at Women in Tech on hustling for a healthier tech world. Stephanie is based in Malmö, Sweden, and has worked and lived in over 7 countries over the past 11 years and speaks 3 languages. Also joining us, we are so lucky to have Nnenna Ndukwe, who is a developer relations lead. Nnenna has 8 years of experience spanning across multiple industries, and she's an active AI and machine learning community architect who is championing engineers to build emerging technology. As a proud member of Women Defining AI, Nnenna believes that AI should augment, enabling creativity, accelerating learning, and preserving the intuition and humanity of its users. Nnenna is an international speaker and serves the community through content creation and philanthropy. She has spoke at the likes of the Women on Stage Global Conference and talks on many different topics around artificial intelligence, machine learning, DevOps, security, and software engineering. So, whether you're preparing for your first talk, your 15th, your 100th talk, these tips are sure to help with calming down those nerves and making you feel empowered to go on stage and to really shine like the star you are.
The first thing I often say to people is nerves are normal, and don't think that anyone is like exempt from that. And so even the most confident people on stage, generally I think I come across very confident on stage. I definitely get nerves just before. So I think if you're feeling nerves, that just means you're human. One thing that really helped me, if you think about what happens in your body and your mind when you're feeling nervous, what it is a lot of adrenaline being pumped through, and so you feel very alert, and you feel like you almost have like a lot of energy through your body that you don't know what to do. That amount of adrenaline is actually like the same that you get when you're really, really excited about something. It's just the framing that your mind puts on it, whether it's anxiety or whether it's excitement. And so when I feel that energy and that boost of adrenaline, I try to kind of tell myself like, this is excitement, even if I'm feeling really nervous, just to feel a little bit calmer.
Public speaking is one of those things where I see it as really an opportunity to lean into your quirks, right? It's like you're there for a reason. You, as an individual, you're there for a reason. This is your opportunity to be more of yourself, right? Just on center stage. So it's not about being something other than you are. And I'm very careful of the advice in general that I take from different people when it comes to public speaking, because we still have to stay grounded in who we are. And that allows us to deliver our message in the most authentic way that actually resonates with your audience, and so I think that is super important. So it's more about being yourself and understand the impact of authenticity. And remember that as you're prepping. I think that's something that can really ground you as a speaker when you actually do need to show up and deliver a message. Remember that authenticity actually transcends self, right? And what I mean by that is the ripple effect of authenticity, because there is an X amount of minutes that you're actually going to be speaking. But what happens afterwards can be even more rewarding and more exciting because of the connections and the comments and the way in which you will attract the right people and the right connections because you showed up as your authentic self while public speaking. I think it's an extremely rewarding and validating, affirming thing.
One thing that is so simple and has been said like 1,000 times, but actually just taking some deep breaths before you go on stage. I'm someone that speaks quite fast, and if I'm nervous, I speak even faster. So if I were to take my nervous energy and run onto stage, I'm going to come across even more frantic than I would necessarily be. And so I kind of have a rule that before I go on stage, I just take 10 deep breaths. And then that's an easy kind of anchor, because that takes 30 seconds, 60, depending on how deep you want to breathe. And I'm not allowed to move until I've done those full 10 breaths. And just as soon as I've done that, I naturally come across, I feel a lot calmer, and I feel a lot more like centered just to walk on stage and kind of show that I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm saying.
Sometimes if I'm feeling nervous, I like to set the tone with maybe a humorous or slightly vulnerable statement in the beginning, because it actually allows me to resonate emotionally with the audience. So we're all humans at the end of the day and imperfect, and that's the beauty of self and other people. So when I start off with something that lets people kind of know that, at the end of the day, I am a person who might be a little bit nervous, but those nerves are because I'm so excited to talk about this thing that I'm so interested in, or this message, this powerful message that I want to deliver. Finding a way to set that tone in the beginning not only helps the audience understand who you are and how passionate you actually are about the message that you need to deliver, but also it helps yourself to actually get rid of those nerves because you were honest in some way, right? And I think that there's a lot of power in honesty early on to set the tone.
I am someone that likes to have everything kind of laid out, ready to go in the morning. So, like, for me to have a good night's sleep, I need to know everything is done and ready to go. So, I always have my bag packed. I always have my clothes laid out in the morning. I always make sure that I have time to. I'm not someone that likes to have like a lengthy breakfast, but at least sit down with a cup of tea and have a bit of breakfast. But the night before, what I'm really doing is checking my outfit. So, like, I'll put the outfit on and just make sure I feel comfortable and confident in it. But then I'll look through the agenda quite a few times. In this case, if I'm being the moderator, so I'm like the host of the day, then I really want to make sure I know exactly what's going through the agenda. And so I'll be looking at my cue cards, and I tend to underline or circle words or items of the agenda that I think are most important to talk about and that I think are going to make the biggest impact. Or it may be like where I should emphasize my voice a bit more. So, like, thinking about the cadence of it.
Giving yourself permission to perform in a way, I think is really exciting. When you only have a certain amount of time to speak, you get to step into a version of yourself for a limited amount of time. And so this is your opportunity to actually give yourself permission to do that. And I think that that's a sense of agency that really helps to translate that energy from anxiety to excitement. It's like this is a temporary time where I get to be in that power stance, where I get to show up in this outfit and, this hairstyle or this makeup and with this tone of voice, with this power. I think that that can really help you to sort of accentuate the great things about yourself.
I often try to divide my preparation into 4 areas, and that helps me not get too overwhelmed by it. And so I often look at the mentality, so making sure I'm calm and feeling relaxed going on stage. The vocality, so understanding where do I want to increase my speed of speech, where do I want to slow down, where should I add a pause, and then the physicality, working out how do I want to hold my cards, how do I want to walk on stage, off stage, and while I'm doing my speech, how should I be moving around? And then the visuals in making sure I look confident and feel confident on stage. And small things, I think, is the smallest things that I need to prepare for. So, like, if I'm going to hold cue cards, I need to know how, like, are the cue cards written in a way that it sounds fluent in my speech when I'm going to change the cards. Don't want to do it if you're in the middle of a key point and then you have to change the cards because that's going to stop the flow of conversation. Or if I want to know beforehand if I'm going to have a hand bike, I can't change the cards. So how do we manage that? Do I have to walk and change them, or can I manage without it? And just, I kind of think of every eventuality that could happen so I know how to get around it or what to happen. Like, I, although I come across confident on stage, I mean, I have anxiety, I'm diagnosed with anxiety. So I often think about, like, I've gone through already the situation of what happens if I fall over on stage. What will I say? How will I recover? You know, tiny things like that.
Some other things that I think are really important depends on your personality, right? If you are someone who is a bit picky or particular about the way that you look physically and all of these little details that maybe other people won't really notice, but you do within yourself, I think preparing ahead of time to address them, if it's the type of outfit, if you're like, I need a functional but professional power type of outfit that looks great on my skin tone and, you know, hair and makeup. Take care of all of those things. It is so worth it to invest in that a wonderful look that you can really lean into and feel most comfortable in, because that'll be one less thing that you have to worry about, or that will be in the back of your mind when you are actually speaking publicly. I care a lot about those kind of things of like wearing the outfit that I feel most beautiful in, because when you show up feeling beautiful, oh my goodness, that energy resonates. It resonates, and I think that it's just these layers of these unspoken confidence or things that you can't really articulate that people will resonate and feel. And yeah, you want it to be a source of power, not a source of insecurity. Part of that is just determining what really matters to you for showing up and leaning into that. It's so helpful when you have community who are there to bounce ideas off of. You know, sometimes I recognize my own weaknesses, right? I love clothes. I love being able to show up looking like my best, but there are some areas or aspects of it that I feel like I might need some opinions about. It is okay to bring in your community to get feedback. That is like a source of power, right? And you get energy from that. You can start to see this as an adventure, not as a source of anxiety if you don't have everything figured out. It's just like, I have the opportunity to actually show up in this particular fashion in this way, which is not something I might be doing every single day.
I often say to people that everyone tends to speak a lot faster than they think they are speaking because they feel nervous. And I remind people that, like, someone who is a fantastic speaker, like Barack Obama, he, in his like acceptance speech, it was 14 minutes long, and 7 minutes of that was pauses. And you wouldn't think that he didn't say anything important. You wouldn't think he, you know, didn't make some great points. But actually, sometimes those pauses give the most impact to your speech because it allows the audience to process what you've just said before you go into the next point of your talk. So don't be afraid of pauses, and they feel a lot longer than they actually are.
When I'm preparing and I can get in contact or communicate with organizers, it really helps to have an idea of what the venue or space, the room looks like. What is the size of it? The expectation of how many people may or may not be there, where I'm positioned, where I'm standing in relation to them, in any setup process that would be necessary, if there's a laptop or mic or any of that involved. I just like having a great idea of that, just so I can start to visualize myself in the space and how my energy will take up room in it, you know? When you can visualize something, oh my God, it makes it so real.
I often ask how involved do they want to be in me preparing my manuscript. Some want to be really involved, and therefore I need to have really prepared. You know, they want to see exactly what words I'm going to say. And I'm generally not someone that actually has every word written down. So then we need to bounce between that. I will always ask them what mic I'm going to have. And if I'm the speaker, then of course I'll take my mic on and off. And if I'm the host, I want to know whether I'm going to have the mic the whole day, like the same one, because that just takes out the stress of where is the mic and do we have to get it on and off? Because you need to think about That's another thing that's very important. The outfit you're wearing. Because especially as a female, sometimes we're wearing these beautiful dresses or jumpsuits, but you need to think about, where is the mic pack going to clip on to? Maybe you have to wear shorts just to save any awkward situations if you're wearing a dress. Just wearing a pair of shorts can help make everything a lot smoother. But then also in terms of how do you get that outfit on and off, you're going to have really short bathroom breaks if you're on stage. And so making sure that don't add any extra stress to yourself.
It's important to remember the story. The story is the most powerful thing here. And if you're someone who gets a little nervous about being in the spotlight, actually, even though it's like, I know I like public speaking, I know that I want to deliver this message, but it's a bit intense having so many eyes on me. Think about it like this: it doesn't have to be about you. It's the message that is the most powerful, and you are the conduit for the message. That is something that is so helpful if I'm in my head about the fact that I'm the one that is the center of attention. And, we're not always in the mood to be the center of attention and can't always control when we're in certain moods, right? But it's not about you. It's about the message, it's about the story that is going to be most impactful, and you can ground yourself in that.
One thing I love doing is the power pose, which is when you stand like with your feet at least shoulder width, maybe a bit wider apart, and then you have your hands on your hips and your chest very proud. Think you're a Superman, basically, or Superwoman, or super person. But the whole purpose is it opens up your chest as much as possible. So I'm often doing the power pose while I take my 10 deep breaths, because you can really fill your lungs with as much oxygen as possible. But what it does is it also makes you take up a lot more space. And I will do that often while someone's micing me up or someone's speaking to me, or I'm still, I will just be standing in power pose for at least 5 minutes before I go on stage. Because I notice it really fills me with confidence, not just being able to breathe, take a deep breath. But they have done studies showing that people, before they have a job interview, they've got some people to do the power pose before the job interview. They've got others to just stand normally, and then they've got others to kind of like, if you think about doing the opposite power pose, so kind of going in on yourself. And those that do power pose beforehand, they perform a lot better in the interview. And that's because also mentally you walk in with a lot more confidence. Like if I were to walk on stage kind of holding myself in or keeping my arms crossed, I'm giving you as an audience, I'm giving you the image and the message that I am nervous and I'm trying to make myself small. So therefore you probably have a little bit less confidence in me as a speaker. Whereas if I walk in like I own the place, whether I believe it or not, I'm going to feel like that because I'm doing it kind of physically. And that's something that I always make sure I do.
One thing I do is I try to assume that I'm among friends. Even if I don't know everyone who I'm speaking to, it can relax me a bit. I know that flow state that I get into when I'm speaking with friends about something that I'm really interested in and passionate about. It's the same type of energy, that excitement, and everything just flows even without preparation. I like to tap into that energy if I'm public speaking, by assuming that I'm just speaking with friends and colleagues.
There have been times where I have felt that my hands are shaking or maybe my voice is shaking because I'm feeling anxious. And I find one way that helps is literally standing a bit wider, obviously not crazy, but like making sure I stand proud on stage. That's actually why I always prefer having a head mic, because aside from having a hand mic, then if I'm looking away, sometimes, I forget where the mic is, like everyone does. But also if I'm nervous, suddenly you'll notice it straight away. So I always prefer having a head mic to avoid that. If I'm holding cards and I notice my hands are shaking, going back to one of my previous points, don't be afraid of pauses. Don't be afraid to just pause, take a deep breath, have a sip of water if you need, because sometimes that's all you need to just stop, have one breath, a sip of water, and then you can go back and keep delivering it. And I often, before I go on stage, if I know someone in the crowd, perfect, because I can use them as my safe space. If I'm feeling nervous, I will look at a friend in the audience that will be smiling back at me. And that helps me kind of get back into myself. If I don't know anyone in the audience, there's always friendly faces in the audience. So I often will identify in the first few rows someone that I can see is really looking and engaging and is smiling back at me. And I'll use them as my anchor throughout the talk. I don't have to look at everyone. I'll just look at one or two people that I know are always going to be looking very happy and kind of engaged. And that helps me to come back into the flow that I intend to have.
One really important thing here is hydrate ahead of time. Again, if you are someone who is particular and you don't want to be thinking about any other extra things while you are public speaking, hydrating is one less thing you'll have to worry about when you are actually up there and having to, deliver a message. And I've learned that the hard way. Don't do what I have done. Don't forget to hydrate. I've spoken at it was some tech company. It was after work, and I was speaking about programming languages and learning how to learn. And I was staring at a bottle of water that was like there in front of me. And I was like, I just wish I had the opportunity to grab that right now because it was so difficult to talk midway through and to really just like find power in my voice and like the texture of my voice that I'm used to. And so, yeah, if I could go back, I would have just grabbed the water. It's fine.
One thing that I think is the most important when preparing for any speech is what story you want to tell and being really clear on that story. So I often urge people, don't overthink the exact words or the exact transcript you're going to have or the presentations and making sure every box is aligned. It's more important to understand the overall story. And so when I've been speaking or coaching people, I often ask, what's the story? Can you tell me in 60 seconds? And they often will then go, well, I can't really do that, so I need to walk through every area. And then that story isn't clear. Like, you should be able to tell me the story of of your speech in 60 seconds. And if you can't, it's not very clear. And so that also helps me. I tend to try and write my story in just bullet points, and each time they'll get shorter and shorter and shorter until I've just got maybe 5 bullet points max. And that, I think, is the most important thing, because if you get nervous and you go off on a tangent or you go off script, which everybody is going to do, you know the story and you know your anchor points and how to get back on track. And so often I'm not the person that likes to have my whole speech printed on the cards. That doesn't work for me because I become too obsessed about the words on the cards. And so what I do have instead is I will have like bullet points of words generally, or they could be, if it's a fact or like a study that I want to speak about, I want to make sure that I get the fact right. But what I will focus on most is where my transitions are. So from one point to the other, if I'm speaking about this study and then I'm speaking about ways that you can implement that in your life, I will rehearse the line that brings me to those 2 points. So it could be a short sentence of, and we can all use this in our lives because, and that means when I'm nervous and when I go off tangent, I know what lines are going to bring me back on track, like come back onto the racetrack. And that makes it sound like a much more coherent story because you worked out where are my like segues to go into the next topic.
Another thing I think about is that you are not alone. You are not the first person in the world that is speaking publicly. So many people in so many different forms and fashion have done the same exact thing, have felt the same exact way. And so I think reminding myself of that, it's just like I'm one of many people who just happen to have this opportunity to do this. I think that's a very helpful feeling or a sentiment that, just allows me to show up and deliver what I have to and not try to be perfect, I guess, while I'm doing that. So countless people have done it times before. You are not alone. There's so many performers and entertainers out there who are world famous, by the way, and tell us still to this day, every time when they're about to perform, they get those jitters. So if they've been doing that for decades and they still get nervous for a few seconds before, this is proof of how normal it is. And yeah, I think that's helpful.